Hey everyone, this is Sean from the Saving Your Future podcast, and today we're going to talk about some tips and tricks and some things to look out for with respect to credit cards. The Saving Your Future podcast is based on the book Saving Your Future by yours truly. It's a book where we talk about all kinds of things financial, and this podcast is the same. So we're going to talk about things related to how to save money, how to get yourself out of debt, how to put yourself in saving situations to save for houses, for cars, and essentially the most important savings is for retirement. And this way you'll be able to set yourself up for wealth development and be prepared to retire on time. So today we're going to talk about credit cards, and I know a lot of people can get themselves in some serious trouble when it comes to credit cards. And believe me, early in my days, I actually had a situation as well where I got into a little bit of credit card debt and I wanted to work my way out. One of the things I ended up doing when I had that situation was I looked at some of these credit cards that give you a 0% interest rate. Now you got to read the terms very carefully, but essentially when you transfer the balance, they usually give you these checks and you fill out the check and then you send that to the company that you have to pay, and that then transfers the balance from company A to company B, and now you owe that amount to company B. The second credit card then picks up the balance. So let's say it was $1,000, you write pay to the order of ABC company, and now you owe XYZ company the $1,000. Now, the one thing to pay attention to is that XYZ will charge you a certain percent, a fee, for transferring that. So it might be 2% of the balance, whatever it is. But generally, I think it's like 1 or 2% of the balance. So think about how much you're transferring over and whether that 1 or 2% of what you're transferring is actually going to be a savings compared to what it would be to pay it off on the other credit card. So said a different way, if it cost me $100 to transfer over $1,000, that would be 10%. But using that as an example, would I have paid $100 of interest to the other card if I just left it there between the now and whenever it is I'm going to pay it off? If it's less than that, then you definitely don't want to transfer it over, because that transfer fee will have eaten up whatever the cost of or whatever the savings would be that you're saving by transferring it to the 0%. Now, the second thing to consider on that is in those terms, it'll tell you normally that, let's say it's 6 months or 1 year, no interest. What it will tell you is that the payments that you make, so if you use that card and buy something else on it, so for example, you transfer over $1,000 and then you go take that credit card and you buy something for $100. When you make payments, it's going to pay off the 0% first. And then once that 0% is paid off, that's when it'll pay off the new charges. So I definitely recommend that you don't charge anything new on a credit card that you do that with. Transfer over the balance, rip the card up, hide it, whatever you have to do. Don't use it ever again until you've paid that balance off. Because if you start charging other charges, you're going to be incurring interest on those charges. So definitely don't use it for any reason during the time that you're paying that debt off. Now, the other thing you have to look at in the terms and conditions before you decide to do this is to see what happens if you don't pay it off within the 6 months or within the year, whatever the grace period is, that it's 0% or 1.9 or whatever it might be. Many of the times what it'll say is if you don't pay off that amount within the allotted time, they will have accrued interest from day one, and they'll charge it all as a lump sum when the time period runs out. So let me say that a different way. If it's 1 year of 0% interest on that $1,000 we use as an example, if you pay it off right before the 1 year, you will have paid no interest. However, if 1 year and 1 day goes by, they're going to go back and calculate interest from the beginning, from the first day that you took that money out. So it'll be as though you've never saved interest. Now, again, not every card has those terms, but that's something you need to look out for. If you're looking at your credit card offer and it's saying, in the fine print that interest will be accrued from day one and will be charged if not paid off within 1 year, just, using an example of what the terms might say, then you have to be very well sure that you're going to pay that money off before that time period runs out. Otherwise, you've saved nothing because they're going to charge you the interest just the same as the other card did. So how do you get around that? Well, let's just say you're thinking, well, I'm not going to be able to pay off that full amount within that 1 year, within that 6 month grace period. Look for another card that gives you that period of time that you might need. So if one's 6 months, well, then maybe it doesn't make sense to transfer it. If another card offer gives you the year, then go for the year. I don't think they go beyond the year, but compare some of the offers. One of the things you can do is right before a year is ending, if you haven't paid off that balance, you can come up with another card and do the same thing. So roll it over to the next card that offers a 0% for a particular period of time. Now, you don't want to be opening up too many accounts. You also don't want to be closing too many accounts, and you don't want to be accumulating a ton of credit cards. So definitely do this carefully. Now, that brings me to another point that I've seen other people do. There have been times when stores would give you a credit card with 0% when you buy XYZ products. So I know years back, and I'll pick on these companies because they're not around, but there were a couple of computer companies that would say, maybe it was Circuit City or something like that back then. But again, I'm not trying to point a finger at anybody. All the information was there for you. It said, buy your new stereo or buy your computer or whatever it is, and take 6 months to pay with no interest. Again, just like the example I said before, the terms and conditions actually say that you have to pay that off within that allotted period of time. Otherwise, interest is charged from the beginning and added on. So for example, you're thinking, okay, I bought this item and I have 6 months to pay it off without paying interest. So sure, I'm going to go ahead and buy this big ticket item, and I'm pretty sure I'll pay it off in 6 months. But you're thinking that once that 6 months goes by, then they're going to start charging you interest. But in fact, that's not the case. They're going to start charging interest from day one. But if you pay it off within the promotional period, then that interest just gets wiped away. If you don't pay it off, then they charge you all that interest and throw it all on there at the last day. So 6 months in one day, if it's a 6 month period, 3 month, whatever it is. So be mindful of the fact that you absolutely have to pay that off before the time period expires. I hope this was an interesting credit card tip for you, and I hope this will help you save some money. Definitely subscribe and check out this podcast on a regular basis. We generally put out at least one episode a week. And also, I've been doing some interviews with people, financial professionals. So if you are a financial professional and you'd like to be on the podcast, definitely reach out to me. My contact information will be in the show notes. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much.